Destroy WrestleTalk.
Soon everything will be Fakeador.
Hello and welcome to the WrestleTalk MECHAnews. I am Luke Owen. You know, Ollie Davis has been saying that things are really weird around here at the moment, and I've actually been getting tweets about that Fakeador's not as trustworthy as we think, but everything just makes sense. Anyway, give us a subscribe and hit the thumbs up button and support WrestleTalk. And leave a comment down below to answer our question of the day. Do you want to see The Undertaker have another match at WrestleMania? And if you do, who would it be against? Because on today's news, we've got an update on Undertaker at WrestleMania, Dean Ambrose possibly staying with WWE, and even more possible NXT call-ups happening soon. But first, Roman Reigns returning to Raw gave a big boost to their ratings this week, pulling in their best number since August last year. Sadly, the same could not be said for SmackDown Live. Despite advertising a contract signing for Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston at Fastlane, Johnny Gargano versus Cesaro, and the team of Aleister Black and Ricochet taking on Rusev and Shinsuke Nakamura, SmackDown was down 6% from their rating last week, pulling in 2.1 million viewers. The show did have strong competition, however, going up against a basketball match between the Toronto Raptors and the Boston Celtics, which I'm sure was filled with touchdowns and home runs and such. But what did you think of the show? I thought it was smacktastic, and a whopping 67% agreed with me, with just 17% agreeing with Ollie that it was smack bang in the middle. The big story coming off this week's SmackDown Live was Vince McMahon pulling Kofi Kingston from his WWE Fastlane baby match against WWE Champion Daniel Bryan, replacing him with the returning and brand jumping Kevin Owens. Interestingly, reports from various places like the Wrestling Observer and WrestleVotes was that Bryan vs. Owens was set to be the WWE Championship match for WrestleMania, with Owens returning as the everyman babyface as teased in his cell phone promos where he goes bowling and to the cinema with his kid. But with Kofi gaining an incredible amount of momentum following replacing Mustafa Ali in the 2019 Elimination Chamber, it's now being reported in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that Vince McMahon made the decision last week to switch the two matches, having Owens vs. Bryan at Fastlane Baby and Kofi vs. Bryan at WrestleMania. And you may have noticed when I was talking about the promoted matches for SmackDown this week, there was supposed to be a match between Johnny Gargano and Cesaro, with NXT champion Tommaso Ciampa and Sheamus in their respective corners. That match didn't take place in the end, with the Bar instead facing the returning Hardy Boys. Although Cesaro tweeted after the show that the card is always subject to change, it's being reported by Dave Meltzer that Tommaso Ciampa is actually currently injured, and that's why he wasn't on Raw and SmackDown this week in ring. And it's also why he's not listed for NXT house shows this coming weekend. Meltzer writes that he doesn't know the severity of the injury, but the plan was for Ciampa to take care of it after NXT TakeOver New York. PW Insider have corroborated this story, saying the original plan for Raw was a four corners tag match between DIY, Black and Ricochet, Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, and possibly Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, with the Revival at ringside. But that was changed when it was revealed that Ciampa had a neck injury, and that kept him from being cleared for in-ring work. PW Insider adds that WWE will need to be creative to work around this injury, and that we are told all options are on the table depending on what the final determination is regarding his injury, especially in regards to him working Fastlane Baby, WrestleMania, and NXT TakeOver New York. And Ciampa's fellow NXT call-ups Gargano, Ricochet, and Aleister Black might not be the only ones joining the main roster soon. Following the signings of Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey, WWE also snapped up their MMA Horsewomen cohorts Jessamyn Duke and Marina Shafir, who have since debuted on NXT TV in the corner of NXT Women's Champion Baszler. Since all four signed to the company, and given the teasers shot during the first Mae Young Classic in 2017, it's been speculated that WWE want to do a Horsewomen vs. Horsewomen match, pitting Rousey, Shafir, Duke and Baszler against Bayley, Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. And although many fans figured that Duke, Shafir and Baszler would come up as a group, tweets from two of those three might suggest otherwise. This past Wednesday saw Baszler take on Mia Yim in the main event of NXT, where she was not flanked by Duke and Shafir, leading to the pair of them tweeting that they couldn't be in her corner as they had another horsewoman they have to help. Shafir tweeted, "As much as I'd love to see the gangster Mia Yim get put to sleep by Shayna Baszler, I would much rather hang with my best friend. See you soon, Ronda Rousey." While Duke posted, "Believe me, I'd love to be in Shafir's Shayna's corner tomorrow for her match with Mia Yim, but another friend is in need, and Shayna has assured me that tomorrow is going to be light work. I'll see you soon, Ronda Rousey and Natalya. And while this might not mean anything, as there are plenty of backstage segments that could air, Duke and Shafir were not out in front of the crowd for the last set of NXT TV tapings, going by fan reports, which could mean a main roster call-up is coming soon. But if WWE did have plans to do a Horsewomen 8-woman tag at some point soon, they might be missing a rather key component of that match. Earlier this year, Dave Meltzer reported in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that Ronda Rousey was going to be taking time off from WWE following WrestleMania. Although Rousey is still signed to WWE until 2021, it was reported that she was looking to take time off so she could start a family, something she's been very open about in interviews. And while it's expected for Ronda to come back to WWE at some point, especially with SmackDown moving to Fox in October, PW Insider have noted that Rousey is not advertised for WWE live events or TV tapings following the Raw after WrestleMania show in Brooklyn, adding credence to this original report that she is going to take some time off from wrestling. But before she can do that, Ronda has the small matter of defending her Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania. The always trustworthy Laurie Blake talked yesterday on his news episode about a Twitter spat between Rousey and Lynch, beginning with Becky tweeting about Ronda getting her belt back on Raw so she could beat her for it at WrestleMania, which Ronda responded to by saying that's what she's trying to do, dumbass. But here's where things get slightly more heated with fruitier language, with Becky comparing Ronda to the Room's Tommy Wiseau and telling her to keep the F word out of her mouth, Rousey responding by saying the only thing fake is Becky's armbar, saying it just looks like you're holding the dick you wish you had, and Becky replying by photoshopping Ronda's husband face into the picture and saying it does look exactly like one now that you mention it. And how did Ronda respond? Rebecca Quinn, I don't care what the script says, I'm beating the living out of you the next time I see you. Are we sure that WWE didn't rehire Vince Russo and not Bruce Pritchard? This has led many fans to believe that there is real-life heat between Ronda and Becky, but Dave Meltzer has reported via Twitter that despite the salty language, this is all by design and likely the work of Paul Heyman, who wants the feud to feel real and drum up interest into the match. Interestingly though, WrestleVotes have added that some of the language was not signed off, saying the word-for-word language was not approved by WWE. Don't be naive and think it was. Sure, WWE wants to drum up attention to the storyline via social media, but they certainly aren't thrilled with some of the wording used. With that said, it's at least one of the few WrestleMania matches that appears to actually be set in stone, which cannot be said for the rest of the card. According to the Wrestling Observer, despite being 5 weeks away, the WrestleMania card has still not yet been finalized. While we know that Seth Rollins will take on Brock Lesnar, Triple H and Batista are going to clash, and there will likely be a triple threat for the Raw Women's Championship between Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, many other factors are still up in the air. Dave Meltzer is reporting that John Cena and Kurt Angle's matches have yet to be decided, with Cena's feud with Lars Sullivan and Drew McIntyre being dropped, and no decision has been made on if they're still going to do Angle's retirement storyline. Meltzer adds that as of this week, there is still no match for The Undertaker, and it's looking likely that he won't be part of the show. And one of the reasons Taker reportedly won't be part of Mania this year is because he's agreed to be part of StarCast 2, which is on the same day as All Elite Wrestling's Double or Nothing in Las Vegas. And it's been reported that this hurt Vince McMahon personally, and he actually tried to get Undertaker pulled from the show. In an interesting twist to this tale, on February 14th, StarCast LLC applied for the trademark of Dead Man Talking, which was figured to be for a panel show for this and future StarCast events. But it was also speculated by some fans that it could be the launch of a new podcast. For what it's worth, Dave Meltzer did reach out and ask the question to the relevant people if Undertaker was launching a podcast, and did not get a direct answer. Undertaker's WrestleMania 33 opponent Roman Reigns made his triumphant return to WWE this past Monday, announcing he was now in remission from his leukemia and he was back full-time on Raw, leading to WrestleVotes reporting that WWE are now making plans for Reigns to have a match at WrestleMania. But before we get to that, there are reports that Roman might team with his Shield brothers Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose to take on Baron Corbin and his merry band of mid-carders with no direction. It's also a new interesting twist in the Dean Ambrose leaving WWE saga, which is currently still set for the end of April. Unless this is all a big Brian Pillman-esque work, of course. What's interesting is that at a recent autograph signing, a fan asked Roman Reigns about his thoughts on Ambrose leaving the company, to which the big dog barked back that he would take care of that. And he may have already had some success in that area, as WWE.com is listing Ambrose for their live events in May on their European tour, though they are also advertising Dolph Ziggler, so I guess card is always subject to change. Thank you for watching, and a special thank you to our awesome pledge hammers on Patreon, scrolling into my stomach and giving me all the power of IDDQD. Holly Davis has a news story over there about even more stars signing for WWE, which you should totally check out, and click the link down there to get your names in these credits. I've been Luke Owen, and that was wrestling.